All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. Today, back up in Portland, visiting with Marc Boucher-Colbert. And if you remember, we visited him at the rooftop of Noble Rot here in Portland, Oregon. And we're here today. It's winter time. It's almost Christmas. In fact, while you're watching this episode, it's probably already been Christmas. But we're here today, and we're going to talk about seed catalogs. I'm sure many of you right now have been getting and collecting your seed catalogs and going through them. They are where all of our spring dreams get started, right, Marc?
Exactly, absolutely. Catalog time is a really exciting time because it comes when things have died down a little bit. Clearly, where we live in the Pacific Northwest, there's still a pretty fair amount of gardening that can be done during the winter. So it's not like you have a 2-foot blanket of snow out there that just keeps you from doing anything.
Exactly.
But at the same time, a lot of things have declined. A lot of crops are out of the picture because of the cold temperatures. So it's a great time to take some winter rest and start doing some dreaming.
That's right. Yeah. Right. Checking out our seed catalogs. And right now what we've done is we pretty much arranged some of our favorite seed catalogs that we enjoy going through during this time of the year. And we're just going to kind of go through a couple of the different catalogs that we like best and talk about them just a little bit. I believe you have one of your favorites right now in front of you.
And what I want to say too is that you had presented me with some seeds here that you got for some seed savers, and to me it's really important to be saving some of our own seed.
Absolutely.
Which is a really great connection with the full plant cycle. You can grow something, you can pick your own, harvest your own seed, and then regrow the plant. And we'll talk about this a little after, but you could be making some selection about where you want that plant to go, the qualities of that plant, when you're in charge of the seed. But practically speaking, it's hard for any individual gardener, an urban gardener, somebody who's busy with the rest of their life to grow all and save all their own seed. Right. It takes a tremendous amount of planning, staying on top of things at the right time, because a plant, let's say parsley, toward the end of the season it might be dry, the seeds are there, then all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 rainstorms and the seed's all soaked and moldy.
Yes.
So you have to really be on it. It's not just something that you do casually. You have to plan and be ready for it. Mm-hmm. So in addition, but saving seed is so valuable, so that's great, and we should all be doing that if we can.
Absolutely.
But then after, we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to all these people who are doing this for us professionally.
Yes.
Because they are keeping certain lines of, they're keeping our nutrition going.
They're basically the ones who are really, really working on that detail, that fine detail. They're selecting the right crops, the right varieties of each one. They're selecting the best and strongest ones to get you the seed for those ones. So, yeah, absolutely. Being able to collect your own seeds is one of the things I like to promote myself. But like you said, we're all busy sometimes, and unless you can do it really right, sometimes it's best just to get them from a seed source.
There's some that are super easy, like for example, calendula, the pot marigold, that yellow or orange bright flower that just about throws itself at you in terms of the seed. I mean, you just almost can't avoid saving some of the seeds. If you just pass by it once or twice and you shake some of the dried, it's producing seeds continuously. That's another thing some crops do. So in the middle of the summer, you don't have to wait till the end. You can go by and you can grab a couple of spent flower heads that have dried down, and you've got your seed saved for next year. Exactly. That's convenient. But a lot of other things you have to prepare. Sometimes you have to prepare the seed with a fermentation process, like a cucumber or a tomato seed has a gel on it.
Which we just did on a previous episode for seed saving episode that we did. I'll put an iCard right above here right now for that. That's where we got our Praxis cherry tomato seeds that I've brought here for you to share with you. We did have to do a seed fermenting, with that, and have to take it through a whole process with the tomato seed in order to get the seed ready for planting.
It looks gross, but it's fun.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. Actually, it was pretty gross. We did have some pretty neat little scene there with some like gooey stuff that gets all collected there.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, like you said, it's cool to go through that process and learn that process if you've got the time to do it.
Right. Well, I think what we're going to talk about too here is that these seed catalogs all reflect different approaches and personalities. So clearly, if you're a beginner, you want to aim for kind of a middle-of-the-road seed catalog, and we'll tell you some of those that have a kind of a broad appeal to all gardeners, and even show you it may indicate what's the easiest crops to grow or a little harder and more challenging. But then as you get further on in the practice of gardening, you might be pretty keen on following one person or one company's approach to seed saving, and you may value their seeds for a particular reason.
Yes.
And you can't necessarily find that elsewhere.
Exactly.
You know, so people are just like any other company, any other business. There may be some special twist or trick, or you know, there's even who has the best cheeseburger. Well, it's still a cheeseburger, but a lot of people can make it differently.
Exactly.
So you're going to go with one versus another because you just happen to like their sauce or something like that.
Right.
Same thing with the seed, the selection, what they're offering. You'll see a lot of the same seeds repeat over a number of catalogs, but some are very unique.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too. I found when I was getting started gardening and I was really kind of getting serious and excited about it,
Yeah.
I ended up just going and collecting all the seed catalogs I could find.
Yeah.
Who's got what? Who's that? And it's stacks of different seed
Absolutely.
catalogs from different companies and everything. But over time, as you're going through all of those and you're selecting seeds or getting a chance to grow some of them, your seed catalogs kind of break down to just those few that you really, really do enjoy.
You get your favorites, your
Yeah,
go-tos.
you get to, and yeah, like you said, it's because you're finding that you're finding success with some of those seeds
Yeah.
from those companies, and that's what kind of brings you back to with those as well.
Right.
And also as well too, customer service is a big thing.
That's true.
I've had a couple of really excellent customer service situations with a couple of companies, the seed catalogs that I still buy seeds from, and that's one of the main reasons too. Why I go right back to them as well.
Makes a big
They
difference.
take care. They take care of things. One company did as well. Just sent me new seeds out of nowhere. Said, hey, you know what? You bought some seeds that we found weren't very viable or weren't the same type of variety that we were trying to sell to you. We found that was the case. I didn't know.
Right.
They just sent me new seeds and sent me bonus seeds,
That's great.
and I think they even gave me a credit
They're being
and
responsible.
whatnot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are the sort of things that you really want to look forward to when you're choosing a seed company to go with as well too.
All right, let's talk a little bit about middle of the road, and then we can go specialized.
Exactly.
I'm just realizing I don't have really one of the most middle of the road would be something like a burpee.
That's what I was thinking.
Because they are appealing to a national audience, and they're trying to offer a bunch of different kind of seeds that are that will grow well under all conditions.
Right.
But that's pretty hard because we live in a country where we have a lot of different subclimates, subregions, microclimates, and or even the USDA zones there, the growing zones that depending on how cold things get. There's other designations like Sunset Magazine put together a more sophisticated look at the growing zones, especially for the West Coast, because the USDA map is based on your lowest possible temperature.
Right.
But for example, like here in Portland, even though we don't get super low temperatures, we do get this prolonged rainy winter.
Yeah.
So certain things that could stand, if you were over in Idaho, for example, where it's much drier, and you were if the thing could stand 20 degrees and it just got to 20 and survived, might not survive here because of the wet.
Yeah, well, it's like where I'm at down in Southern Oregon. Right now, I believe we're about 10 degrees lower, and a lot drier. We're not getting the rain.
Right.
So in that case, we are really, I think we're in the same zone.
Yeah.
As far as what we're considered. But yet, we've got this different kind of microclimate in our own regional climate that we have.
Right.
That kind of separates and makes those differences between what you are seeing when you're looking at that zone map.
Yeah, so I think the catalog like Burpee is interesting. It's good to look at. I guess I do have. Let's see. I think I have one that would be. Here's one that's akin to like Burpees. This is totally tomatoes. So they would have tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, cukes, the warm weather stuff. Basically, it's basically a seed catalog all about that. They really don't
It's your summer
get
seed
into
catalog.
anything else. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they'll have a little equipment, they'll have some sprays and such, they'll have some recipes, but you won't find carrots in here, you won't find onions. They're specialized.
Yeah.
And kind of deal with the national market. You're going to find something that can grow in your region in here, but it may be hard to know
Yeah.
what's what.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
you're going to go trial and error. But there's some good stuff in here, stuff I can't find anywhere else. That's kind of neat. And I'm looking for a specific thing. I like to page through some of these. Even though I don't do the majority of my seed buying from this kind of catalog or burpees,
Yeah.
I'm going to look through it just because I
Just
might
to
stumble upon
see what's
something.
out there, see if there's something different that you haven't seen yet too.
Sometimes I found too, with burpee, for example, I used to grow a pepper called gypsy. Now here's the part where if you're not saving your own seed, you're at the mercy of the companies because they have crop failure. They're growers. It might have been a bad season. They don't have the seed for the next year.
Right.
They may decide that they're not getting enough sales, so they might just decide we're going to let this one go. So if that's your favorite crop,
Yeah.
you may be left out in the cold if you haven't been saving your own seed from it.
Right.
So sometimes I've found by digging back into like a burpees or something, I have found a variety that I liked that was still being grown by the national seed catalog, but
Exactly.
not something like this is a regional seed company, Territorial Seed Company, and they're down in Cottage Grove, Oregon, which is close to you.
Yep,
Right.
Territorial Seed Company, which I'll put another iCard up there. We did visit when we first started our channel, one of our very first few episodes that we did make a little short visit to Territorial Seed there in Cottage Grove. And that was one of the things that we talked about in that episode too, was buying or getting seed, and also we talked about seed starts at that point too, from someone who's local, who's growing and trying these seeds
Yeah.
in our region, in our area. That's, and they're finding the success with those seeds.
Right.
So that's why they're selling them.
Yeah.
So in our area, to be able to get those sort of things that are grown more in our region
Right.
is a real benefit when you're looking at that sort of thing.
A lot of seeds are grown on the international market and might be getting seed lots from Europe or from other parts of the country where there may be more favorable conditions. So having a company that says, look, we're going to trial everything that we sell,
Yeah.
no matter where it comes from. We're going to trial all this stuff in our own fields, and often 2 or 3 years before they say, look, this is good. This is performing really well. We've got a couple years of data on it. Let's release it now. That gives you a lot of confidence that you can grow well. So if you can find a local seed company, that's going to make your life easier, especially
Yes.
if you're a beginner gardener.
Yeah, even localer. I mean, I believe that you have some catalogs from some really local
Yeah.
seed people here,
Yeah.
right in this area.
Let me talk about these guys, though, Johnny's. They're from Albion, Maine, and that might seem a far stretch. But one thing that's interesting to notice is pretty much you could draw a horizontal or latitudinal line across the country between Portland and Maine.
Right.
And so one thing that's going to remain constant, if you drew that line all the way across, you'd hit parts of Europe and such. All those places have the same day length. That's one constant.
Yet.
So this seed company I find works really well out here. They actually they've expanded to do trials in the Northwest as well, even though they're based in Maine. But just by virtue of that day length,
Right.
that governs a lot of seeds as well. For example, onions, many onions are day length sensitive.
Yeah.
And if you get a variety that is a short day length, that's going to grow better in California, Texas, Florida, where days are shorter.
Right.
Whereas here we have these wide swings. We get much longer days in the summer, much shorter days in the winter. And a crop like onions, you may be thinking, I'm not doing well as a gardener. I can't get these onions to bulb up.
Right.
Maybe because you don't have the right amount of light. It's something
Right.
beyond your control.
Yep. They're going to need that different region in that area.
Yeah.
Where the length of the day is a little bit different.
So Johnny's is another favorite. It's not local, like I said, although they do a bunch of testing, and these guys are very active reaching out to local farmers and local market gardeners. So they're also testing in their own way, but they're letting the farmers do the testing, whereas Territorial is doing their own on their fields. I mean, Johnny's has that too, but it's more based for Maine,
Right.
With much colder winter temperatures. These guys have their own. These guys are looking for feedback from farmers here who are growing the stuff in their fields.
Right.
So both proven for this area. Now you're asking about specialty.
Yeah, you said you had some.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example. Well, and this one too, the Johnnies. You can tell these guys are pros. They got the glossy catalog, which has to cost a huge amount to produce.
Right.
You know, they're showing you, they're giving lots of rich information-laden descriptions and pictures for everything. So you're getting a visual and such.
Yes.
And that gives you more confidence if you're new to a particular crop. Once you get into specialty territory, you're like, this is Uprising Seeds. They are in Bellingham, Washington, northern Washington. So this is a small family affair, and they don't have a big bankroll to be producing huge glossy catalogs.
Exactly.
So their strength is print. They're just going to give you this newsprint catalog with lots of detail. One thing I like about these guys is the writing is actually funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's comedic elements. There's a lot of information too. You know, I mean, each one has a good solid paragraph about maybe where it came from, maybe somebody, a particular person who is responsible for breeding it, maybe something else that's unique about
Just
it.
telling that seed story, basically, huh?
Yeah.
Which that's one of the things too. You know, most of these really neat and different varieties of different vegetables or fruits or whatever you're looking at in your catalogs. A lot of those unique varieties have a cool story behind them.
Right.
You know, and it's really interesting to kind of get the detail on where some of those plants were derived from.
Let me read you this one. This is from Eggplant, and the particular variety is Diamond. And the writing starts off, "Amazing!" exclamation point. Did you know that eggplants weren't just flowering ornamentals here in the Pacific Northwest, but that they might actually produce fruit too, even outside of a greenhouse? And not just a lonely token fruit to insult all your hard work. Lots of eggplant. So they go on, it's just like this idea that because of our tendency toward cooler summers, which is changing a little bit, but definitely in northern Washington, cool summers, eggplants traditionally require much more heat to fruit. So they're saying, hey, our eggplant have, you know, a lot of varieties just produce flowers, but they never get enough heat to really make the fruit. But here's a variety they've tried with its own specific genetic code that allows it to produce abundantly in that region. Yeah. So they're writing it humorously to kind of let you know that.
That's great.
So I like this is just straight up by the book, madam. You know, just like what the main notes and points are. But this because it's smaller, they could be a little more quirky.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to offer things that other people don't. They're kind of like flying a little bit under the radar, and their collections are going to even be more based on the things that they're interested in. Mm-hmm. Whereas companies like this need to focus a little more on broad saleability.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's definitely, like you said, you can tell that in the detail of what they're putting in the catalogs and what they're showing you as far as growing methods, and some of them even show you what insects they're vulnerable to, all of these sort of things and stuff, and they're really putting that sort of detail in there. Or as you said, something local, more localized like that's just got to kind of give you that, you know, in a smaller sense. Similar to like this one here too that I wanted to show is a Kitazawa seed company, and they're based out of Oakland, California. But their specialty is bringing over seeds from Asia. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those Asian greens, your bok choys and different types of radishes, the daikons, and different things like that, you know. And similar, you're really only going to get just maybe like a small illustration of some sort, and you're just going to get some detail and whatnot, and they don't really got, like you said, the money to be putting in and making some big fine catalog like that. Mm-hmm. But it is also traditional for them too. Right. So this catalog is traditionally comes in the color and does and everything, and they tell you that story. And I think one of the fascinating things about them is that they're on their 100th year of producing and making this seed catalog and selling seeds throughout our country here. And out of the 100 years, I think one of the things that's really fascinating and to mention is that there's only a couple of years that they weren't able to produce this catalog, and that was during World War II when, what happened with the Japanese during that time. So that was a real unfortunate time for that, but it was really great to see that they were able to get right back in and make their company and have it continue to this day with their families just carrying it on for them. It's a really great company.
Absolutely.
I really recommend this for you if you're really looking into those sort of Asian vegetables and stuff like that, and different types, those unique varieties that you can find from there that they bring over here to the States that work well in our region. Because like you said, again, they've actually grown these things, they've tested them, they know what works right here and what sells right here. So that's a really great catalog, the Kitazawa Seed Company.
Some of this stuff too, if you're a commercial grower, even somebody trying to do a little bit of extra income on the side, getting a new kind of variety might be your entree into getting business. Because you might have something that none of your other competitors have, and nobody else can find it very easily. Exactly. You know the source, or maybe you're even saving your own seed. That's even more exciting. So that truly you're crafting this kind of variety that's working for you. It's working for a chef, you know, maybe it's working even for your own kitchen or whatever you want to do. But you are crafting that, and literally no one else has it.
Yeah.
You could be that unique. So whether you find an unusual source or you're saving your own seed, it's kind of exciting because you can kind of explore those avenues of really individual production.
Exactly. Did you have any other seed catalog that you wanted to share?
Well, this one's really fun. This is Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, and it bears mentioning a little bit about heirlooms and what's called the opposite of heirlooms would be hybrids. Heirloom seeds are seeds that are grown over generations, and they stay true to form. You say, for example, take a tomato, a ripe tomato one year, and you squeeze out the seeds, you save them, you store them properly. Then when you plant them, you are expecting the same kind of tomato.
Yes.
With many of the there might be some small variations that are due to random mutations and such in the genes, but basically you're getting the same thing. And from time to time, from year to year, it's reliable. So that's the whole basis for naming varieties and such. If everything changed every year all the time, we wouldn't know what to predict, what we were getting.
So you see that in some places too, the difference between, so maybe you can explain that a little bit, these difference between like seed, open pollinated seed, heirloom seed.
Yeah, open pollinated and heirloom have a lot of overlap. Heirloom generally refers to something that has been part of a culture or a family or passed down to the generations, just like you'd think of a knick-knack box or a special painting in your family that have been carried on and passed on. Some of the seeds have very dramatic stories brought from this, that, or the other place with great secrecy or at great cost. Some of those exciting, interesting stories.
I have to say though too, also, you know, that's Baker Creek is one of the favorites of both of us. We talked about that. We've mentioned it already on the episode that we did at Noble Rock.
Yes, I was talking about
Baker Creek. We did go visit the National Heirloom Expo this year, which is put on by Baker Creek. Talking about seed stories, they are very, very good at those stories. And telling you about where these seeds come from. They're out searching for these newer varieties and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's one of the things I really, really enjoy about Baker Creek. I mean, they are exceptional in putting together. I mean, you can just go to their website, ask them to send you this catalog, and they send you out this really nice catalog. Let's just take a look real quick. This is just a catalog they send you for free. Okay, you can just go right on there. There'll be a link down below where you can get one of these catalogs, and this is the one they send you for free. And it's a great catalog full of a lot of information, but they also go one step further. They put out one, and it does cost a little bit. It's going to cost probably about $10 or so, I believe, on their website. We'll put another link down for that too, but this is the whole seed catalog. This is like, if you remember when you were a kid and you would get that Toys R Us.
The whole toy catalog,
That's this thick, or the Sears catalog, you go to the toys, you know. But it's this big, thick, and it's just full of all this stuff you're just wishing for, and that's exactly what this is. And it's got everything, and just big, bright pictures, stories about everything and their seeds and how their seed farms are working. really employee based. There's
Yep.
a lot to do with their employees and
Right.
their company and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are excellent. This is the premier of seed catalogs. I think.
And that will include a number of essays and short pieces that support what's going on with their seed projects. They might describe, for example, a couple of their plant explorers who go out and actually find these seeds and how they do it, at what risk, with what kind of connections with local people, how they make this stuff happen, how they introduce this novelty or rescue a variety that maybe was just being grown in one very small region and might be lost. So it's exciting. I mean, here you get a synopsis. This is beautiful and exciting too. But that is more.
It just goes really in depth. They put in some recipes to all sorts of stuff. It's just really great, you know.
Yeah.
So like we started the video with talking about how this is the time we're creating our spring dreams and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That catalog really just helps you get going with that too.
Yeah.
And like I said, another thing too, bringing back to the whole idea of customer service too. Excellent customer service with with Baker Creek. Just.
Let me circle back to the heirloom, open pollinated, and hybrid thing,
Yes.
because I think we touched on the heirloom. Open pollinated is a bigger category than heirloom, but it refers to anything that can be reliably reproduced generation after generation by saving the seed. So there may have been something that people are doing traditional plant breeding. In other words, they're able to create by crossing pollen from this flower with and dusting it in the ovary of this flower. They are able to create novelty. Mm-hmm. And if the novelty sticks, if that trait gets picked up and is reproducible with the new variety, then it becomes what's called an open pollinated. It wouldn't be an heirloom because it might have just been invented last year.
Right.
But it is open pollinated, meaning that you can reliably save the seed from it and you'll know you're going to get whatever that new trait is. Like these, for example, are really astonishing new tomatoes. They're not heirlooms. Right. These are called atomic grape, so they're longer than a cherry, more ovoid, but they have just an amazing flush of color.
Yeah.
And
all of them, the reds, the purples, yellows, oranges in there.
There's a guy down in California at Wild Boar Farms. His name is Brad. Let's see if I can find it. He's generating a lot of innovation in tomatoes, especially, and he's created these fabulous tie-dyed, Brad's Atomic Grape. Oh, here he is, the Wild Tomato Man, Brad Gates. So they are carrying a whole line of his tomatoes, and they're just the most amazing, visually amazing tomatoes you've ever seen, with these mottled skins and different flavors, black tomatoes.
I can say personally, I've actually seen his tomatoes.
Have you?
I've gotten to taste some of his tomatoes, so they are amazing, as you described. And it is really cool that it's getting to be featured in there with his too, and that really cool variety like that.
So he's creating these. I mean, this never existed even a few years ago. He created it by selectively crossing, as I said, pollen from one plant that had certain kind of traits. So maybe he looked at a particular tomato that had nice grape oval fruits, and maybe it was a classic red, and then something else that had the same kind of thing but a different color, or even a different shaped tomato that had a different color. Right. And he said, some of it I can only imagine is quite experimental. I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to try to make these crosses. Now, that's traditional plant breeding, and that results in open pollinated seeds that then conserve the new varieties if it's successful. The other element that we would talk about is hybridizing seeds. Yes. And that's a much more technical affair. And the key with creating hybrids is that when you save the seeds, they do not reproduce what you just grew.
Right.
They revert. You have to purify. You're doing the same thing when you create hybrids, in that you're crossing the genetic material of two plants. But these plants have been purified. They've been grown. I don't understand it completely, but it seems like there's a kind of a weakening of each line for a while that creates these parent lines that are somewhat weak, but they have these they're strong in terms of a particular trait. But overall, these plants would not be the most successful. They've been weakened in a way as they're inbred. In other words, and that we know from just general cultural discussion that creates weakness. Exactly. But when they're crossed at the end, it creates a new plant with substantial vigor. Right. So there's some substantial advantages. But these crosses have to be made every year, and if you tried to save the seed from, say, a hybrid tomato, you would not get what it was.
What I understand is you get one of the parents or something.
The characteristics start to revert
Whatever
back.
was the stronger characteristics or of the parent or whatever will revert back to that.
Here's an example. I've done some of this.
Those.
You can save seed from hybrids. Like there's a really amazing cherry tomato called Sun Gold.
Right.
Probably had that, right?
Sun Gold cherry tomato?
It's almost everybody's favorite.
Right.
Juicy, fruity, just amazing taste. Everyone loves it. It's a hybrid.
Right.
So I have collected the seed from Sun Gold and planted it the next year. And Sun Gold is an orange round fruit. I got red heart-shaped things with little points on the end. I got all kinds of different shapes and sizes, and nothing that was like a Sun Gold.
So it was just kind of went crazy, and then it just went all different directions.
So it's showing signatures of what contributed to it. But the point is that you never know. It's proprietary.
Right. Yeah.
So the companies that are creating hybrids are creating them proprietarily. So they know they've done the work to, and it's true, there is a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
But the deal is you can't, as a gardener, you can't save the seed. So it takes it out of your hands and requires that you buy every time. Now some of the seeds, like Johnny's for example, they will list, Johnny's has a lot of hybrids. So that, for some people, that wouldn't be an advantage. They might not want to support that kind of thing.
Right.
But the hybrid does produce this increased vigor during the first generation. After those two weakened parent lines have been crossed, things go crazy for one generation, and you get sometimes a much taller, much earlier, much more blocky plant.
Right.
But then you're left back at the seed company the next year to buy it again.
Buy it again if you want that same thing that you want to get there.
So that will be indicated in the catalog by F1, which in the breeding lingo I think means first filial generation, first child generation of whatever the cross was between these two inbred parent lines. So that's, if I'm looking at this page of peppers and I'm seeing F1, 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 F1. Oh, then I see 3 that do not have that. That means they're open pollinated, or in some being heirloom. F1, 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 F1.
Right.
So Johnny's is leaning pretty heavy on the hybrids.
Yeah.
And you can, it's just good to know.
It kind of makes sense in some senses for them. It's like you said, for business purposes, you find something that's really good and you can make a hybrid out of it that people are really going to want and go after. They're going to come back and buy that again and again and again. And it just, it's good business when it comes to that sort of sense of the seed company and what they're doing there. But it is also really great to have seed companies like Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, which is basically an open source seed catalog. You grow it, you get to keep it.
Right. It's kind of the difference between buying Microsoft Word and doing Linux, right?
Right. Exactly.
Open source is shared in the world, and you can add to it, and same kind of thing. If you buy the other thing about saving your own seeds, even if you buy, let's say you buy some seeds from Uprising Seed for that diamond eggplant, for example,
right,
and then you save the seed, what you're doing is you're starting to create a plant that's adapted to your microclimate.
Mm-hmm.
So with each generation that you save over 2, 3, 5, 10 years, if you're faithful in saving that seed, you're getting something that as long as you choose the best ones, you don't want to choose runty seed from runty plants. You always have to. This is a process just called selection. You just look and you say, that looks pretty, I'm going to save the seed from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that was one of the things, like when I was saving the Praxis cherry tomato seeds, it's a husky cherry tomato, so you're expecting a nice little size globe cherry tomato there.
Yeah.
But you're gonna also get a bunch of other little smaller sized ones and stuff too. So when you're saving your seeds, you're going after the best ones, the ones you really want to eat.
Yeah, right.
Those are the ones you want to make sure you save your seeds for on those and everything.
Right.
That's great. One thing too, I want to mention one of my other favorites too, kind of in a similar way, is that they're on the other side of the country too, but it's Mowing organic seeds. They're another one similar to.
They're from New Hampshire, right? That's my home state.
New Hampshire, yeah, exactly. I really like these guys. The same with the idea of like the catalog itself is very educational.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is a point that I wanted to kind of get into when we're talking about the catalogs. Is we're real quick too, though, is they're similar, like you're saying, a lot of the hybrids, a lot of that sort of stuff, and they're working those sort of things out. But they're showing you like pretty much everything when you're needing to know what you're needing to know about growing each of these different varieties.
Yeah.
Like I said, all the way down to even telling you about pest control and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So, is there anything about like Johnny's or any of these other catalogs that you feel work in that sort of sense of showing people
Oh, yeah.
what they need to be doing to grow versus just, hey, here's some seeds, here's a picture, you know, this is what it's going to look like or whatever, you know?
Yep. They'll have, so for example, Territorial does a great, Johnny's and Territorial both do a great job with this. They provide you what's called the cultural notes. Now, by cultural, we don't mean, drinking a French wine or a Roman artifact or something. Cultural means the culture of something, the growing of it, the agriculture, right?
Right.
So they're giving you the cultural notes, which, for example, what do we? So this is a page on kohlrabi. This is all the varieties of kohlrabi that they offer. But this first band, the first part of this page, is all the cultural notes that this crop would have in common. So it's going to tell you the best soil temperature for germination, the seed depth, seed spacing, the minimum germination. That's an interesting point because not all seeds, by their nature, germinate at 100%.
Right.
So some seeds, just by their nature, for whatever natural reason, may have 75% germination, 50% germination. So you may, if you know that right from the get-go, you won't worry if a lot of your seeds don't come up, or you'll be able to plan to overseed.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing, it's important to know because this is, again, like the sun, the amount of sun a garden gets. This is something that's fixed in the nature of the crop. It's not you being a bad gardener.
Right.
Just you knowing what is. We're talking the freshest seed. You're getting the freshest seed, and it still germinates only at 80%. That's the nature of the crop. So that's good to know. Seeds per quarter gram, I guess they're telling you in case you really want to just be doing it individually, so you can measure that out. Days to emergence, how long, it's kind of like your period of not to worry.
It's kind of something you kind of
don't
know
worry until day 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's still got that variability. It could come anywhere between day 5 or day 17, so.
Yeah.
There's that to Frog and Toad. You know those kids' books, Frog and Toad?
I don't
There's a really charming series, and Frog and Toad plant a garden, and they're just so anxious for it to come up. So I think Toad goes out and he sings to the seeds. He does all this kind of reads to the seeds.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily a matter of encouraging the seeds. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they have a timetable on which they're going to do it.
Exactly.
So this is something that comes up for me with peppers every year. Plant the peppers. Even with a little bit of a heat pad, they take about 3 weeks to germinate. And it's always agonizing after the first week and a half because you think, I just planted my peppers, a week and a half has gone by. Should I replant? They're not coming up. Just doesn't feel right.
Every single year, and I love to do peppers. We'll be doing peppers here in the next couple of weeks as we get started for our next 2018 pepper growing season. But that is one of the things with peppers. And every year too, there's always one that just goes a little too long.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, put it to the side because I want to maximize my space. I'm going to put something into that space. If it's not going to come up, I throw the thing off to the side somewhere, and then I'm looking like a few days later, it's in a dirt pile, little seedlings are coming up.
Right, exactly.
So they take a long time for some of those, and peppers and other different varieties of different types of vegetables have their certain time that they're going to come up. So it is great to know about what that range is because you don't want to, like I said, be tossing out.
Exactly. Or the other thing is if you really want peppers and you let 3 weeks go by and they don't come up, so, some people will save their seed from even a package. Let's say you get a package and you use half of it, and then you put it up on a shelf somewhere, maybe in your garage. So it's exposed to moisture, it's exposed to the humidity that's out there, and not ideal seed-saving conditions. When you plant those seeds next year, you come, instead of ordering from the catalog, you say, I still got a half a pack, I'm going to plant those.
Yeah.
You may have reduced the vigor, what's called the vigor of the seeds, their natural ability to sprout, because seeds to sprout, they do take in moisture, and that sort of activates the process. But if they're just exposed to wet, humid conditions, they may just degrade without actually ever sprouting and lose their ability to do that, or the plant is weakened.
Right.
So it is good to know the days to emergence, because if you get past 17, for example, here, you're going to start wondering, you're going to ask other questions. Like, is this seed that I saved from last year? Did I do something wrong? And then, do I need to replant if I want this crop?
Yeah.
When's the time when I say, all right, don't wait 2 months,
Yeah.
because if you know 17 days, you've waited way too long and you may miss your window to get the crop in. So that's important.
And that's, like, you know, and another thing too, just back to what I was saying with the peppers, you know, if you got small spaces and you're growing in small spaces and you only got so much room to do certain things and you got to time out certain things, if they are taking a bit too long, you know, then they should, you know, you do need that space to start growing some of your other next things. So, like I said, it's good to know when you can say goodbye to that and let it go.
Right. There's a section here on thin plants too, 3 to 8 inches. Beginning gardeners have a hard time with that.
Yes.
Every seedling is sacred and precious. You don't want to disrupt it. And then what you get at the end is a bundle of plants that have grown up, that have basically competed with each other for all the resources. And, you know, for a kohlrabi, for example, you want a nice swollen stem section. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you need to give adequate room for that to happen. Otherwise, you're going to have a number of...
It's going to spread itself out too. It's got these nice big leaves that come up off of it and everything as well. So you're going to have to understand that those leaves need light.
Right.
If you're pushing them in too tight together, those leaves are overlapping each other. Some aren't getting the type of light that they need to be getting and all that stuff. I think it's something that we all really do when we first start getting gardening. I know I did, you know, it's overseeding and or putting them too close together.
Yeah.
Although we do want to, I think when we're urban gardening and whatnot, we're trying to maximize our space as well. So we do want to be able to get them in as close as we possibly can. Right. We have to be aware of where it's going to be when it gets bigger.
Right.
So I always tell people, like when I'm down at the community garden, I see this a lot with a lot of the community gardeners that come in, you know, and they're not visualizing the plant when it's supposed to be big, you know, when it's they're seeing that small seedling coming up. Yeah. Like you said, every one of them's precious.
Right.
So let's put them all in right here, right there, you know, and they're not visualizing the adult plant and what you're going to be actually harvesting. Right. So, you know, that's a good key or a good way to start for beginning gardeners anyways. Visualize that adult plant, the one that you're going to be harvesting, and make space for it.
Sure. Just a side story, as you know, I do garden education at a Montessori school.
Yes.
And working with kids, this is often a challenge because the young kids especially have no concept of the space that will be needed. So we might be planting radishes and they'll just take a handful of radishes and throw it down in a glob, which isn't going to work. You know, you just know right when it goes down, it's like, oh, well, I'm writing those radishes off. But to teach spacing, you can make these seed tapes, which actually they're available commercially as well. Yes. Whereas a kind of a ticker tape or a roll of paper is dotted with glue at the correct spacing, and then a seed is placed on the correct spacing, and then you plant that.
Yeah,
literally
roll it out,
make a furrow in the soil, roll it out, lay it in, cover it over, and you've got correct spacing. So that's actually a good thing to do in the winter. It's a great thing to do with kids because then they like to glue and do the fine motor stuff. And at the same time, you're teaching them and yourself that, hey, there's a spacing need for these seeds. I mean,
a good resource also to look up, I think, too, or to even study up on if you're interested in or you're doing gardening, is just the ideas in square foot gardening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's where you're going to really kind of get down to that seed spacing and how you can maximize your space. You know, getting more intensive, but at the same time making sure that there's going to be plenty of room for that plant to grow out.
Right. A lot of times you want to be thinning as you go because if you have let's say a 1 foot square and you know that a lettuce, for example, takes 1 foot square and you plant one seed in the middle, you might not get that one seed to germinate. Yeah. So you'd actually rather have about 10 seeds in there. Even if 10 plants grow up, then you can let them grow a little while, see which one is the strongest, right? You can kind of choose between them. And then you, at a certain point, when they're starting to encroach on each other, then you take out all the rest and you give that the plant that you've selected the space to grow to its fully mature form. And so this will say this too, rows. You know, this tells you the row spacing. It tells you the spacing in the row, but then how far apart. So if I'm placing my kohlrabi, 3 inches apart, that seems pretty narrow. I may need to put my next row 18 inches away. Whereas if I'm giving them 8 inches in the row, I could probably get closer, 12 inches or something. So you play around with those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then this tells us too, seed life, 3 years. So that's good to know, right? I mean,
Right.
It's like if you've
So
had
we're
that
talking about
packet.
storing and whatnot, if you're
Yeah.
properly storing the seed, you should probably expect this variety or of kohlrabi to last you 3 years in
Yeah.
storage. Possibly longer though too. One
Oh,
of the
yeah.
things they
Oh,
say is
my
that
gosh.
all you're really getting is, I think, that germination rate's just declining.
Yeah.
You know,
Now
so-
let's see for tomatoes. Let's just see what they say for tomatoes because I've had tomatoes last. They say seed life 3 years. I've successfully grown tomatoes 10 years
Mhm.
old.
I believe there's a YouTube gardener, MI gardener, Luke, who this last year grew a tomato seed from 80 some year old seed.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
isn't that
amazing.
something? And also talking about seed stories, I think one of the really cool seed stories out of Baker Creek this year is this kind of crookneck watermelon.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, they, I'm not sure who it was exactly, found this seed in the back of a cave.
Right.
In a little like
Pot or
container
jar,
that
yeah.
had like a, like a wood top to it. So
Yeah.
it was kind of sealed in there and it was in a very dry type of place in
Right.
the back of this cave.
Right.
So who knows how long that was in there? Maybe even, I'm not even sure exactly, but it's a long, long time that seed stored in there.
Yes.
To when they grew the seed out, it came out and had this crookneck on it.
Yeah.
And so I guess they believe that they used to grow that variety out to have that trait so that it could be carried around.
Right. But a
Like
watermelon, unusual for watermelon.
down in like, I think it's New Mexico or
Yes.
something like that. So you're talking about an arid, dry, desert type of place.
Right.
A watermelon packs a lot of water, a lot of water and nutrients in it that you can just carry around.
Like a
Instead of like
canteen.
hooking it around, you're carrying it around. So
right.
I think that story about that watermelon's really cool. I might actually even try to get hold of some of that seed
Yeah,
and see if I
that'd be
can't grow
exciting.
one of those. It'd be really kind of cool.
Kind of that idea, the cave brings up the point that seed storage should be dry and, if possible, cold.
Yes.
Now, every seed, here's Johnny's gives you a similar little guide at the beginning, but what they do for each crop is they put actually a picture of the seed, how big it is, and then they give you a germination guide in terms of the optimum temperature that it will germinate, which is interesting to know. So there's a lot of variation. Radish might be at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas this is a leek, a 72 or so. So a lot of variation. But storing seeds, you generally want dry and cold. So putting after you're finished, let's say you finish your pepper planting and you still have plenty of seed, you know that it lasts a few years from looking at your catalog. Get that thing right away into a Ziploc. And
Yeah.
if it's dry, you can even add some desiccant, which you can get at a hobby shop or like a Michael's or a craft shop. Which, everyone, you buy binoculars, you buy a camera, you buy certain things, you get those little strange little packets. You buy
Yeah.
kelp,
Right.
right, sushi, dried sushi. Any of those things will have desiccant, and it's something you could just dry out in your oven, and then it's going to suck any moisture out of the environment of that
Yeah.
bag so that your seeds stay really dry. Then you can put them in the fridge or the freezer, and that's going to last way longer than the recommended length.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just proper good seed storage for all of your saved seeds. That's a good way to go with that.
Yeah. So you can make it, in other words, if you're going to buy, whatever, let's say I want to buy some lettuce here, a seed packet, if I get a half a gram packet, it's going to be $3.45. That's probably about 100 seeds. It's going to tell me here. Seeds per gram, 400 grams for $3.45. 400 seeds. That's pretty amazing. So I'm not going to use 400 lettuce seeds all in 1 year. So that's something I can plan. I've made a multi-year investment there, even though it's only $3.45. That sense of like, I'm just going to store this and then it'll be ready for me next year. I know how much I want this year. I'm going to plant 10 seeds a week or something, and then I'm going to store half of it for next year, and I've saved myself that money. It's a good strategy.
Exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we should have a lot to say about seed catalogs, right?
I guess we did, huh?
I mean,
Yes, I think
the last thing I want to mention is this is an actual book. You know, this is the whole seed catalog. And it
Yeah.
really looks like a book. But really, each of these seed catalogs are garden books in a way.
They are.
And you don't have to spend a lot of money if you're a beginner gardener or even trying to learn more. Reading these catalogs, you are going to get a wealth of information on seeds and on gardening in general. And I think it's really worth some time just to dig into this stuff and really don't just flip through the pictures.
Yes, really good seed companies make really good quality seed catalogs that are not just going to show you the seed or, like I said, show you the picture. It's going to tell you a lot about what you're doing to grow that seed, grow in general, just growing
Yeah.
in general. There's
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of knowledge. They are like gardening books.
Yeah, exactly.
Just and each company has a little different way of teaching you something a little bit different about growing different things, and that's what makes gathering a bunch of different types of catalogs and getting a bunch of different companies into your living room while you're planning your seed buy for the next year is a really great thing, because as you read through those things, you're going to gain a wealth of knowledge in gardening in general, and that's what they want you. They want you to succeed.
Right.
You succeeding in the garden is exactly what they need.
They're trying to provide you with a product that allows you to grow what you want to grow, make you feel good about being a gardener, success.
Exactly.
You want to enjoy success.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much for
Thank
inviting
you,
me
Edith.
up
No,
here
this is
to
a great
talk about-
conversation. Great conversation.
come up here and talk about seed catalogs as we're getting ready to go into this next season. This is just a wonderful chance for us all to kind of get together and talk about these awesome different companies, and we'll be getting back together hopefully pretty soon here in this next year's. We'll kind of try to make another trip up to Noble Rye and check out the garden up there. Plus, I believe there's a couple of other things that you might have in store for us here in Portland.
We've talked about a few.
All right.
There's lots of things in gardening that we can explore, so I look forward to it.
And I definitely look forward to it, and we all look forward to it here on The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today on this episode. It's been really cool to get out here and talk about our seed catalogs. Now, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything at all, please hit me up in the comment section below. And if you can, give this video a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up for Mark for joining up with us today. And if you can, hit the subscribe button. Follow along in our garden adventure that we're taking here on The Urban Gardener. And I'll see you again on the next episode.
Thank you.
How about that?
Awesome. That was great.
Good, huh?
Oh my God, I boosted my energy. It's like
I
all of a
wasn't
sudden,
too sure, but as we get
as soon as
going,
the conversation got going, I was like, ooh, I'm feeling all right now. Ooh.
it is a little different when y'all also for a second start to think about, wait a minute, I'm talking to people now.
Yeah, true.
When the camera turns on, you kind of turn on, and you get going and all that sort of stuff. So
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's good stuff, and like you say, you're focusing on whatever's beyond that little box. There's a whole bunch of people who might click on
Exactly.
and look from their homes and be learning. And oh, good, okay, that's good. I think we did too. I think we had a lot of great points, and it's going to be an informative